Let's take a look at ARCHIdigm's schedule for doing cut and fill work in grading scenarios. To begin with, I'll lay out some theoretical contour lines. On a real project, you would probably get these from a surveyor. You can often ask for your surveys to be in 3D. At minimum, you would get the contour lines as polylines. If you were to get them as flattened out contour lines, you can modify them to represent the true 3D elevations, similar to what I'm about to do. So I'm just going to draw some imaginary contour lines on this theoretical property outline. We'll just kind of make a few contour lines that kind of do something interesting here. And I don't need too many. We'll just do something like that. So if these are each 5-foot contour lines, I'll go ahead and move these guys here. I'll move those all up 5 feet. And I'll move these 5 feet more. And these two 5 feet. And then this last one 5 feet. And that should represent some contours there. So I'll go back to plan view. Now you could also select the contours and go to your properties, of course, and set something like the elevation value. Let's see here. I'll pick this, and you can go over here, and you should. This first one is at 0, and then the second one here, you can see the elevation over here is at 5 feet. So that's another way to do that. When you have contours such as this, you can use a command in AutoCAD architecture called drape. You can actually type in drape, and it'll begin. Or in our latest release, we created here in the streets kit. If you go to our grades palette, you'll see that we have the drape command ready to go, along with the other tools that I'm about to demonstrate. And there's also an explanation here of how it all works. And even further down, there's a whole theoretical site setup demonstrating everything I'm about to cover. So I'll start with the drape command. I'll just go ahead and select the contour lines, hit enter, and then read the command line down here, and it says, do I want to erase the contours? No. And do I want to create a regular mesh, like a grid? Yes, typically that's what I would want to do. And then I go ahead, and that's why I have the property here. Even if I didn't have it, you're going to have to pick some kind of a rectangle. It will only use a rectangle as a boundary. So I'll go ahead and cut across here to here. And then it'll ask me for the X direction number of units. Think of them as the columns, and then the rows. So given that this is a more rectangular space or property, if I start with 30, which is quite a few, maybe I would do something. I would start with 20, and then 20 I might go 1.5 times as much for the height. So I would go for 50, and then I would go ahead, and then for the last part is how thick do you want your base to be. You could have 0, or if you desire a greater base thickness, then you just come up with some number. I'll go ahead and go with the default of 2 feet. And then when I hit enter, it's now created a topographic map. And if I go ahead and go into 3D, you can see it here, and here's the 2 feet of thickness. Okay. And just quickly here, the grid, you can see the grid if you copy this over and you go ahead and explode it, then you'll see what it did here. So I didn't create exactly square ones. If I had been more diligent about the dimensions here, I could have made perfect little squares. Also notice how many of these squares you get. Of course, the more of those, the more impact it has on the size of your file, and the speed at which you render and rotate things. So just be aware of that. I'll go ahead and get rid of this stuff now. Okay, so now that I have my mass here, we can go ahead and do some work to it for our cut and fill scenario. So I'll go ahead and go to top view here. And just for the sake of speed, I'll go ahead and I'll just say mass add, mass, let's see, mass element add. Okay, and it defaults to a box, which is good. And let's say I just have on this theoretical property, I have something. I'm only going to type in the size, but I could type in. Let's just say I need a foundation area approximately this big, and then I'll just give it a lot of height and hit enter. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and rotate this. All right, and then it would be nice at this point to go to some shading. So I'll just go ahead and do shaded. All right, so I can see everything better. And let's say we're positioning a house. I'll snap from here to this contour height here. Let's see, maybe I'll get it out here. There we go. So now I know I have it at the right height. And I'll go ahead and just, oops, move, undo. Here we go, move last. Okay, now we'll just slide this over. All right, I'm going to give this a different color. Let's see here. Let's stick it on a different layer so I can see it better. So what we want to do, so you can see how it's sitting up like that. If we were to do a foundation, we would probably want to come down maybe, well, if we're going to do a retaining wall, then we would come down a lot deeper. Maybe we'd come all the way down. You can see it sliding into the grade there. I might come all the way down to, let's see here, 8 feet, something like that. Maybe a little bit more, another 6 inches. All right, so that might be the cut that would be done on that soil. Now, if it were to go out beyond the edge, that's okay, but for this scenario, let's just keep the foundation within the property lines like this. Okay, so let's imagine that that's where a cut will occur and maybe a bit of a retaining wall at the back. And let's maybe add a little more extra to this. Suppose we want to do a little bit of some fill work. Maybe we'll fill. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and copy that mass element here, and I'm going to bring it over. Bring that mass back here a little bit, and let's say I want to fill to here, and then I'm going to bring this all the way down. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit so it certainly goes in there. That's way too much going through. Bring it in here. Let's see there, something like that. There we go. Okay, so you can see here I've got, maybe I'll bring this up another 4 inches. There we go. So maybe there's a backyard patio area or something that will involve a little bit of fill. So we'll go ahead and get started on this now. We'd like to do some calculations. Okay. And let's go to no shaded view. All right, so we've got the information here. So what I like to do in these scenarios is I like to start with my original, and then I'm going to go ahead and make some copies here of this information. I want to bring that over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this over again, and maybe even once more. Just have a few copies available. And so the first thing I want to do is I'll go back to the Streets kit, and now I'll take a look at my mass group tool down here, and I will go ahead and I'll say let's insert into the drawing, and I'll go ahead, let's see here, in 3D, I'll go ahead and attach my mass group to this lower corner here. It doesn't matter which, as long as you snap to one of your mass elements that you're keeping, it'll be easy to keep track of where that mass group icon is. You notice here when I pick, that's where the icon and its tools pop up. So that's why I picked that corner. And what I've done here is I've made a group of just the original site grade. But for this example, what I'd like to do is do my cut. So I'll go ahead and do an add here. I'll pick on this icon, and I'll do an add, and I'm going to go ahead and add that element here. So now what it automatically does is it assumes that you're doing an addition, and so that's all considered soil now. We just added a bunch of soil. I don't want to do an add, I want to do a cut. So I'll go ahead and I'll pick on it, and I'll right click, and I'll go, let's see, down here we should see, let's try that again. Pick on it, and then right click here. Go down to something called Model Explorer, And if you are having trouble getting the Model Explorer, it's on this list right here. I say insert in a drawing, and it pops up automatically. And so there's the actual file back there. Let's do that again. I'll pick on it. I prefer to do it this way, and then go to Model Explorer. And now if I click on this little icon up here, expand it, you can see that there are the two masses in the group, and one of them is a box. That's the part I want to make a cut. So I'll right-click on that, Operation, and we'll go ahead and do Subtractive. Okay, then we'll go back up and click, and it should look like it has actually subtracted that information out. And we'll go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so that's the cut. And I'll go ahead and I will now do this again. I'll click on the group. I'll do a plus, and I'll click on this. This is going to be the fill, and it's automatically added. And so now if we shade this, this is the that's the end goal right here. A little bit of a build up here. Maybe that's not correct. I should bring it down, but I'm going to leave that alone. So we can see this is essentially the completed site for foundation work here, and then maybe a patio back here. So I can go ahead now if I want to. I could just start with a calculation already. And if I go now back to the Streets Grades tool here, scroll down a little bit more. Well, in order to get the schedule tool to work, I need to put some data on these objects. They don't have any data right now, particularly, and I want some specific data. So I'll just tag these with numbers, and I'll go ahead and do an insert into drawing, and I'm going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to start with this one here, and put that number on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and I'll do the other ones later. So I'll just put some numbers. This one should start sequentially as 1, and this one will be 2, and then if I go ahead now and come back down to where it says the grading volume table, insert into drawing, I can go ahead and make some tables very quickly. So let's do a table for the existing site, and just hit enter, and it says the existing site is coming out. It's defaulting to cut, so don't worry about that. But it's coming in at 9,182 cubic yards. Okay, so we know what the existing, and that is kind of a fictitious number because you know there's just the 2 feet of depth here, so it doesn't really mean much. It's just a relative marker for you, and we'll go ahead and we'll do that again, and we'll go into this tool here, and we'll go ahead and put a schedule in for this one here. Okay, so what we can see here is this one has reduced down, so we are headed in the right direction on the numbers that it's calculating. It's seeing a total of, you know, I don't know, what is this, about 200 or so cubic yards. All right, so we're just keeping track of those tables, and you don't have to use these tables. I'm just doing it as a demonstration. You can do the tables at a different point, like after you've done these next things that I'm about to do. So what I have here is I have essentially a total or end product volume compared to the original site. So we know we're having a net negative in terms of. But we'd like to do the cut now. So let's just calculate the cut. So there's a couple different ways that I can do this. A quick way would, we'll just leave this copy here. So I don't need this here. I don't want that. I just want to calculate the cut. So I'll go ahead and I'll go back and I'll do the group tool. So here's the mass group. I'll go ahead and park that there, and then I'll go ahead and I'll add the cut. Now I'll go into the Model Explorer. You got to make sure you're picking the right, pick away from things here, not have anything else in there. Model Explorer, and we want to make sure we're getting the right one here. So it just calls them mass groups. So you might want to rename this one as cut, just so you can keep track of them. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set the operation to intersect and take a look and make sure that it's doing this properly. So it's not doing anything at all that's different. What I need to do is drag the box up and hit OK. Oops, actually I did that backwards. Let's see here, show the model explorer. Let's drag this back up here. There we go, they look the same. There we go. So this is essentially the amount of cut now. It has calculated the intersection of those two volumes, and it shows you how much is going to be cut out of the main grade, so that's good. Now we'll go ahead and we'll do the same thing again here. I can get rid of that, and let's do the mass group. Okay, and then I'll go ahead, oops, I'll go ahead and do the add, and then I'll go ahead here, pick here, and then go right click and go to Model Explorer. Now on this one, this should be this one down here. Let's rename that to fill. Okay, so what I want on this one is I just want a, let's see, I want a subtraction. So I have the box here, that's an automatic additive. I want the free form, which is the primary, the drape portion. I'm going to change that to a subtractive, and let's see here if we're getting this correct. Now I slide that, there we go. We slide the one on top of the other. Okay, so this is the amount of fill that I will be needing. So now let's go ahead and go to the top view, plan world, and let's make our table here. Well, we can't really get the table done just yet. I have to add some more numbers. So I'll go ahead and I'll put a number on this, and I'll put a number on this. Okay, and now let's make a table of everything. So I'll go to the table tool and insert it in the drawing. So I'll go ahead and I'll grab this, 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 and this, and hit enter. All right, so now I should have a table of everything. So the last thing that's missing is calling everything a cut. So let's take a look. This we'll highlight, that's the original. We'll go over here and look at the extended tab for the data, and you'll see because it was tagged with that number, it has custom property data, and it automatically defaults to cut. So what you can do here is you can pick on this drop-down list, and you can pick from these default names, or you can put in your own, but just be wary of changing cut and fill. Those are programmed in to have meaning of positive and negative values. So what you probably would want here is you might want to write in your own name as existing. All right, so we'll get that one done. This one over here, you could call that one total or proposed. Right, and then we just want to make sure this one here is for sure fill. So we'll take this one and make it fill. And then we'll take this one here and make sure it says cut. Okay, so now those are all set up correctly. And all I got to do is just refresh the table here. Okay, and then what we see now is we see the amount of cut is minus 385 cubic yards. The existing was 9,000. So we took 3,085 cubic yards out of the 9,000. And then we added back 32, and we get a sum total of right here. This is the sum total. And the difference between these two, the amount of cut and fill, you can now indicate in your documents as being a negative 352, meaning that's how much is going to be off-site loaded unless you're transporting it to another part of your site. So that's just a quick overview of a very simple way to calculate some cut and fill values on a project without using civil software. And the final thing that I'll explain is a little bit about how this stuff works. If you want to tinker with it, modify it, or do whatever, expand upon it, is if you go to Manage, you go to Style Manager. Let's see here, I'll pull this over a little bit to make it smaller. We go down to Documentation, we go to Property, Set Definitions. Right here is the properties that were added to make those things operate as cut, fill, and other grade options. This is where the cubic yards was set. And then there was a number, that's the little tag gives it a number. Then the phasing is where it gets the cut, the fill, or existing proposed, or no change. That's where that comes from. And here's the automatic, it calculates the volume. So for the cubic yards, you just use a little bit of a formula here. You take the volume that comes off the objects, and you do some division, you've got your volume. So that's the data that I created here to attach to those objects. Obviously, you could expand on this. And under applies to, what's been done here is it was set to, let's see, it should be mass elements and mass groups. So let's see, here it's objects, there we go, mass elements, mass groups. And you can also do this with regular AutoCAD 3D solids. So if you just want to do your work with solids, you can use the same techniques and formulas. Now the next part is the schedule. So here's the schedule that reads that information. And really all you have to take a look at here are the columns, and there's a formula plugged in here, right there. And that formula reads, it looks for the word, or the phase is what it was called, cut. So you can see right here, when it reads the phasing, when you set that on the properties palette as cut, it just changes the value to a negative value. Everything else is read pretty much as positive. I don't think there's anything, yeah, everything else is read as positive, unless it's like no change. And so that's the basics of this. Nothing terribly complicated. Just getting a formula like this to work properly is a little bit of effort. Just a slight error in your typing or the way that you configure this data in here can make it not work, and you fight to try to figure out how to get it to work exactly right. But once you get it, you've got it, and it's even serves as a template for other things if you ever want to do an if, else, if, then scenario. Anyway, that should cover everything. Hopefully this is a tool that you can use to just get some very preliminary numbers on projects you're working on. Often find I have to provide this information on cover sheets, even for very simple foundation work.